Thank you very much for joining us today. Now, information available to Joy News indicates that a special police and military unit of the bomb squad has been dispatched to the residence of the Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister Andy Osei Okra in Kumasi to defuse a bomb planted there. The bomb, according to sources, was planted at his residence last night and was discovered through CCTV installed at his home. Let's get more details from the Ashanti Regional Minister, Alexander Akon. Okay, so we are trying to get in touch with him, but the news is that yesterday there was a bomb that was planted in the house or the home of the Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister. Through CCTV footage, they've been able to uncover that, and we'll get the Ashanti Regional Minister, Alexander Akon, to give us more information on that. But whilst we try to get him, let's move on to other stories. And hundreds of patients on admission at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital are being discharged this morning. This move, according to the Chief Executive Officer of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Kwesi Osei, has become necessary following the strike by the nurses working at the facility. The psychiatric nurses began an industrial action yesterday, October 31, to protest poor working conditions, which they claim are life-threatening. The situation has thus had telling effect on the patients, as some partially recovered patients have taken to catering for their inmates who need close monitoring. One of such patients has been telling Joy News how she has been managing the situation in the absence of the substantive nurses.
We feel lonely. We miss their presence a lot because they really do well. Because I think handling the patients is not easy. So we think whatever been now, I think I don't know what is their demand, so I can't say anything about that.
With respect to taking care of your other colleagues.
I think they are cooperating, so yeah. You look familiar. Yes.
So who gives them food? Who shared tonight's food?
I did, and the medication I did. Yeah, the nurse in charge was in this morning, so she shared the medication down and she gave the directions. So when it was time for evening supper, I gave them the medication, then I shared the food for them.
You did it all alone?
Yes. So easy. I'm a patient. I don't know, but I don't have accommodation, so I can't. I don't have accommodation of my own. That's why I'm here for the meantime. Because of my condition, so I've been homeless for some time now.
Quite disheartening situation there at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital. Well, to prevent any chaos and the unexpected, Dr. Kwesi Osei has been outlining some contingency measures the hospital management and the authority are putting in place to manage the situation. Tall among these measures is a premature discharge of some patients whose cases have seen some improvement.
We are liaising with the management of the hospital to see what contingency arrangements can be put in place. Now, such contingency arrangement, for instance, one, they have had to stop the OPD because the nurses are not there. So the doctors, they will have to move to the ward, stop the OPD, that's the outpatient department, go to the ward and attend to them. Two, they will have to discharge as many of the patients as they can. So currently there are 430 patients. They will need to discharge about 300 to 350 of them. So that the few who are left, the few nurses, well, not nurses, the few health assistants can attend to them. And they are also to try to recall the health assistants who are on leave so that they will be able to assist. And then we will liaise with the ministry tomorrow or the Director General Ghana Health Service to see how they can mobilize nurses from other hospitals because this is a critical situation. We are trying to talk to the nurses, but it looks like we cannot get them back because they're adamant, because their point to is that their lives are at risk. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have discharged them that early. You would have waited for some time. But these are patients who are not that bad. They can go and with medication, Where you don't have the medication, you write for the relatives to go and buy, and with that, we should be able to get them to be going on at home. But normally, we would not have discharged them, but because of the crisis situation, yes. But at the same time, those who are certainly that bad, we can discharge. And that's why I didn't say we are discharging everybody. They will need to keep some. There are, for instance, the children, you can't discharge the children who don't have relatives. And most of the children, they are about 14, they've really been abandoned by their relatives, so you have to keep them here. Geriatrics, elderly people who have also virtually been abandoned by their relatives and are weak, you also cannot discharge them, so they will have to be here. Infirmary, that is the ward for physically ill patients. That you can't send them anywhere, so you need to keep them here. And then there are some very bad court cases. If I say bad, I mean severe cases, like murder, like drug trafficking, like rape. Those ones, you can't let them go home, so you have to keep them here. But all others who are well enough and who don't fall within this category, they will have to discharge them. And so about 300 of them, they will need to discharge them home. The doctors, the prescribers are themselves also threatened because they are saying they can't work without the nurses. And they also have a point. So again, we are trying to liaise with them to see how best we can contain the situation. But all said and done, I think that we should have some expedited resolution, because this situation can't continue for too long. In terms of collapsing some of the wards, they started. I've gone around with the hospital director. Those wards which have no patients, no, not sent to them, they've been brought to other wards where you can get one staff or so to contain them. In fact, there's a ward which is now being manned by a patient who is well enough. That is a patient who is attending to the other patients. So that is how bad the situation.
Now, still on this, the Ministry of Finance, according to the Health Ministry, is expected to release some funds to procure a number of medications needed for inmates. Speaking to Joy News' Ernest Kojo Menu in an interview, Public Relations Officer of the Ministry of Health, Tony Goodman, said plans are far advanced in securing those funds. He, however, impresses on families of the inmates to take responsibility of the upkeep of the loved ones undergoing treatment at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital to lessen the burden on the government.
There are two issues that were put before the Ministry of Health. One is in the area of workers, and we've dealt with that this morning. The other is to get medication for the staff in there. We are actually dealing with that because before you even go to procure one psychiatric medicine, there are processes you need to go through, which we are currently doing. What for us in the ministry we want to say is that they should continue taking care of the people, even though the medication there are not enough. We said they should continue dealing with it. We have a private facility there. They should look at the private facility and get those who can procure some of the medication. They should buy and work on them. Because if I come to Accra Psychiatric Hospital and I can actually buy the medication and for you to take care of my staff and you are not there, it means that you are actually not serving the purpose for being there. So we went to also plead with them, the Minister for Health, together with the Minister for Finance. They've also assured that they will give some amount of money for us to go through the procurement processes. They mentioned some basic things like detergents. We thought the hospital should be able to take care of that, but since they said they are not able to do it, we've spoken with the minister to see how much we can get for them to also procure those.
If you're dealing with mental patients and your security is not guaranteed because you lack the necessary medication that will make sure that it brings them under control, what do you expect them to do?
We share in their sentiments, I share in their frustration, because if you are taking care of patients and you have to be chased by the same patient, you must as well stop working or you leave the post. That is what exactly they've done. But beyond that, what happens? That is what we are doing as a ministry, trying to procure the needed medication for them, trying to provide some of the basic things they need to get to take care of the patient to be able to continue working in this facility. What I keep seeing, and people seems to not to understand, is that the people there were not manufactured from anywhere. There are relatives, they have people who have just come to dump them and are no more there. That is where the problem is. Because if we have to be taking care of our own people, relatives who we've sent there, I don't think government would go through this stress. The fact is that we provide them with the budget they need to work with. But you would have a budget for 4 people. By the time you realize you have more than 4, you have 10 people in that facility. So those are some of the challenges. Those who are actually going to dump their patient there should go and support them. To go, there are certain things, because if I'm not well, or I'm a patient in that hospital and I'm not well, and I have to go for a secondary care or tertiary care, BH surgery, MRI, CT scan, very expensive, it's government who takes care of it. So at the end of the day, your budget will be exhausted, and then you will not have even money to take care of the other things like medicines and others. So that is where that is how the situation is, and that is how bad it is.
Okay, so you want to make some procurement as regards some of the emergency drugs or medication they'll need. How soon are they coming?
As I said, you have to go through some processes. You can't just go buying medicines on the counter. They are not such medicines. We will go through the certification processes as quickly as possible to get it. Because if you don't do the right thing, you think you want to do it in a haste, you would actually cause a lot of damages. So we are just trying to avoid that.
We understand that the Health Ministry is trying to engage the Finance Ministry to release some monies for the nurses and for the situation at the psychiatric hospital. Can you brief us on that?
Oh, we are in talks with them. They promised releasing some money, so we are just making follow-ups to see whether the money has been released or when it will be released, for us to go through the processes to get other things for that hospital.
How far have you come in your negotiation?
Oh no, we've come far. We're only waiting for them to release the money.
Let's get onto the phone and speak to Joy News' Maxwell Agbagba, who is at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, for the latest on this. Maxwell, what is happening at the hospital now? Hello, Maxwell. Let's try again and see whether Maxwell Agbagba can hear us. And he's our reporter at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital. We just told you of the situation on the ground as at last night. The fact that some inmates are taking care of their own their colleagues at the facility. And we also heard Tony Goodman telling us about what the Ministry of Health is doing to ensure that the situation does not escalate. And our correspondent Maxwell Agbagba is currently at the hospital again to get us the latest on the ground. Let's try again and see whether we'll get him. Hello, Maxwell, can you hear me? All right, so Maxwell Agbagba is not on the line, but we're trying to restore contact to him and bring you the latest from the Accra Psychiatric Hospital. You're still watching News Desk on Joy News on Multi TV. My name is Beatrice Edu. We'll be back shortly with more. Stay with us. This is still News Desk on Joy News on Multi TV. Let's return to our story earlier before we had that break about the Accra Psychiatric Hospital. The fact that the nurses have embarked on an industrial strike and the patients have been left to their fate. I'm joined on the line now by our correspondent Maxwell Agbagba, who is currently at the Accra Psychiatric Hospital to bring us the latest. Maxwell, what's the situation there now as at now?
Well, because the situation has not changed. It's still what the information that we had yesterday, the information we put out yesterday, is still the same thing happening here. Nurses are around, but they are actually not on duty. So some of them are not in their uniforms as it stands right now. I'm in front of the outpatient department where we are about, I can count about 40 people seated at the outpatient department. Some of them fresh cases and some also coming to the hospital for the very first time. Now, what is happening here is that if you're a new patient, it will be very, very difficult for you to get access to the OPD or to get any of the doctors to check your BP, your blood pressure level, or to do any check for you if you're a fresh patient. Now, what they are doing right now is that they are attending to old cases. So if you have an old case, if you have a folder here already, and you can come to the OPD and you'll be given the drugs that have been prescribed for you. You can come in here and take a drug. But for new patients, it is very, very difficult for them. I spoke to a gentleman whose sister is epileptic, and he says he came all the way from Dodowa for her medication. And as it stands right now, he has not been able to access the outpatient department. For him, it is an old case. but he has still not been able to access the outpatient department. I had interactions earlier also with Dr. Selassie Adom. She is one of the senior nurses here at the hospital. She tells me that they have a repatriation plan in place, and that will be happening sometime around 12 o'clock when that process will start. And she says that what they'll be doing is to assess the patients. So some of them who are well and who are doing fine, they'll check them and then send them back to reunite with their families.
Great, Maxwell, sorry to cut you. Let's take it one by one. So now you're talking about the fact that it is difficult for new patients who are there to access OPD. Does it mean that they are not being attended to?
Well, for those who are coming to the hospital for the very first time, it is difficult for them to access the OPD and enjoy the OPD service. You know, when you come for the first time, you have to check your blood pressure, you have to do some checkups. Now, it is difficult to do that because the nurses who usually help the doctors to carry out all these activities are not present at work. So the pressure is now on the doctors, and the doctors are also complaining that they are unable to provide those services because the nurses are not available. So that is for new cases. So
and the old patients, I heard you say that they have a plan in place to start discharging them from 12 o'clock. Am I right?
Okay, so this is the repatriation exercise, they call it. So what is going to happen is that starting from 12 o'clock p.m. today, the doctors will be going around to the various wards to check the patients who are in there. So for those who are fine right now, but are just being monitored, would have to reunite with their families. So there'll be a checkup in there, and then when the check is done and they are then set to go back to their various homes, then the hospital will release them. Dr. Selassie Adom, who I spoke to, tells me, gave me a estimation of about 200 patients. So she says that they are looking at repatriating about 200 patients to reunite with their families. She tells me that it's something that they do usually, that what has necessitated this current repatriation exercise is the fact that, they've been under financial constraints, they've been suffering, they've been cash-strapped for some time now, and that's one of the reasons. The second one is also the nurses who are currently on strike. So she says some of the patients who are at a psychiatric hospitals are fine. And so what the hospital is going to do right now is to make sure that they are fine and they are well, and then they repatriate them. And that process is starting today. I spoke to Dr. Akusios, who is the director of the Mental Health Authority, and he also corroborated what Dr. Selassie had been told me earlier. He says the process has become necessary because the Accra Psychiatric Hospital does not have the resources. They don't have the money to take care of some of the patients who are still here that are fine.
So Maxwell,
the repatriation exercise has become very important for them.
Yes, Maxwell, exactly. You're telling me that Dr. Selassie has confirmed that they have begun the process of assessing 200 inmates to be sure that they are okay for them to be discharged. Is there a possibility that these 200 will be sent home today?
Earlier, one of the communication people here told me that the repatriation exercise is actually a process. So today they are kick-starting that process. So they may not be all of them will not be going home today, but arrangements will be made because some of them are coming as far as the northern region, some of them different parts of Ghana. So arrangements will be made. Advances will have to be provided for them to go back to their various homes. That provision will be made. But today we are kick-starting the first process of the repatriation exercise.
Thank you very much. We'll end it here and we'll bring you more later at midday and in our subsequent bulletins. But you heard Maxwell Agbakpa there reporting live from the Accra Psychiatric Hospital on the situation following the indefinite strike declared by the nurses at that facility. Let's move on to Ashanti region, and we brought you this story earlier about a bomb that was planted in the home of the Deputy Regional Minister Andy Osei Okra in Kumasi. Let's speak to our correspondent Erastus Asare Donko, who has been following this particular story, and Erastus joins us live on the telephone line. Erastus, first of all, tell us what security officials found so far regarding this incident.
Well, there is scanty information coming in officially from the security agencies at the moment. They are holding information to their chest, but I've been able to gather some information from them as well. And I'll give you my observations at the scene. Currently, I'm there we came here early in the morning, specifically the Deputy Regional Minister's residence and the National Security Data Center. That is where they found the explosives. So it's not directly inside the Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister's residence, but you know the Minister's residence shares a wall with the National Security Data Center. That is where they are going to monitor events in town, with the CCTV cameras they've rolled out in the city. That is where they are going to monitor events in town during the election. So behind the wall of this data center, that is where one of the explosives was found. So when we came here in the morning, there were a number of military personnel gathered here ostensibly to defuse the explosives and pick it up. Another one was located closer to the end of the Deputy Regional Minister's residence, adjacent a spot close to the residence. That was where the other one was found. So two explosives. What we are being told currently by the security couples is that these are very powerful explosives. They do not know the motive behind the person who planted these things. They do not know who planted them. They are now investigating. We should wait for some few minutes before they are able to tell us the official position of the security couples. But for now, we've been able to confirm that, yes, indeed, yesterday evening, explosives were found and located behind the National Security Data Center and close to the Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister's residence.
So you're talking...
They have been diffused and the military have taken them away.
Great. So you're talking about two explosives at different locations, not so far from each other, right?
Exactly. Some few meters, about 10 meters from each other.
Now, what more can you report on what is being done currently to contain the situation?
Well, currently, I've been told by the National Security operatives that the place is safe. They've been able to disarm or defuse these explosives. The military have taken custody of them. They are currently holding security meetings at various levels to establish what they found and to be able to discuss what they found on the ground so far before they get to the media to speak with us. And so we are still on standby to see what we can gather from the security couple.
Thank you very much. Erastus Osare Donkor, Ashanti Regional Correspondent, bringing us the latest on that story where two explosives were planted close to each other around the National Security place, as well as the Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister's residence. Let's move on to other stories. And the Electoral Commission will today come face to face with three political parties whose flag bearers are in court to challenge the Commission's decision to disqualify them from this year's polls. Last Friday, the EC and the PPP case ended with a victory for Dr. Indum and a directive to the EC to allow him correct the mistakes on his form. Later today, the Electoral Commission comes up against the NDP, the PNC and the APC. There's more in the following report.
For the National Democratic Party led by Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings, today's proceedings will be a second bite at the cherry. This comes after an Accra High Court dismissed a suit challenging her disqualification. Mrs. Rawlings was also ordered to pay 10,000 cedis cost to the EC. Justice George Kumsin described the dismissed suit as incompetent and not capable of appropriately invoking the jurisdiction of the court. He, however, gave a leeway, leading to NDP lawyers filing a fresh suit seeking the court's enforcement of Mrs. Rawlings' fundamental human rights, which they believe the EC had breached. The court will be expected to grant an abridgment of time motion to allow the matter be heard early. A date for submission of written statements and presentation of oral arguments will be fixed by the court as well. It is expected to be no different for the People's National Convention, the only difference being it will be day one of Dr. Edward Mahama's fight to get back into the race. Dr. Mahama is asking the court to set aside the EC's decision to reject his nomination form, as well as order the commission to accept the form. For the APC's Hassan Ayariga, today will be day 3. Even before a date is fixed for ruling, he remains hopeful of a positive outcome.
I think we have even a better case than the PPP. In our case, we have properly filled the doc. All subscribers have actually subscribed to our doc. But according to EC, out of our subscribers actually subscribed to another candidate. I think that the court will give us justice.
The court, presided over by Barbara Tetechawe, is expected to fix a date for ruling.
Yesterday, the Commission filed an application at the country's highest court seeking to overturn an order of the High Court that directed that PPP presidential aspirant Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum be allowed to correct anomalies on his forms. The Commission, in a statement, disagrees with the High Court ruling, arguing it was fundamentally flawed on the grounds of legality and public policy. Here's Favor Nunu with more.
It is 35 days to the polls and the legal battles continue. The PPP Dr. Ndum's victory dance has come to an abrupt halt. The real fight is only now beginning. This time, the EC is turning the tables, seeking a Supreme Court review of a High Court ruling on the Ndum case. The Commission is of the firm conviction that, backed by law, candidates must take full responsibility for ensuring that their forms meet the standard in form and substance required by the law. They argue further that falsified signatures on nomination forms constitute a matter for criminal investigation and are not mere anomalies or clerical errors which should be pointed out to candidates for corrections to be effected. Lecturer Yao Opon backs the EC's action.
We should not sacrifice the law on the altar of convenience or lack of time. What would be the alternative? Is it not better for us to resolve these matters in accordance with civil procedure, or what accords with civility, by going to court than people holding? In any case, the respondents through their applicants, through their lawyers, issued, if you like, a caution or a notice that if they lost, they would have gone to up to the Supreme Court. What is wrong with EC also going to the Supreme Court for a finality to be given to this particular part?
But lecturer Dr. Poku Eduse is concerned about the impact on the electoral calendar.
I am worried that the Electoral Commission is pursuing this line, because by the time the matter is even resolved in the case of Ndum in the Supreme Court, we would have lost at least about 10 days.
Nonetheless, the EC bypassing the appeals court to the Supreme Court is to seek clarity on the relevant aspects of the law on candidate nominations and to determine the application expeditiously while squashing the ruling.
We are now just a week to go before one of the most controversial elections in U.S. history. New polls show that Republican Donald Trump has narrowed the gap to just a single point. Democrat Hillary Clinton's chances of winning has taken a major hit since the FBI announced they will be reopening investigations into her email scandal. Many of the polls show the race tightening in battleground state. Head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, is in one of those battleground states, Iowa, and filed this report.
We still have 8 days to go before that all-important elections on November 8th. And right here is Iowa, Burlington, Iowa. And right behind me is the Great River Bridge, one of the most important landmarks in this part of town. You're wondering why I'm here. Well, this is one of the areas we call the battleground state. You win this state, or you're most likely on your way to the White House. And that is why we are here, to sample what locals feel about this all-important elections, an election that has been strange in many, many ways. Just this morning, we had a lot of talk about the FBI now getting a warrant to set through those emails. That has Hillary Clinton, of course, now defending a lot of the things that she did back in the day. It's been one of the biggest challenges for her. She's been fighting off this. And the polls are also showing that Donald Trump is beginning to close the gap. Now remember that Donald Trump has been struggling himself with many accusations of sexual harassment. In the polls back then, well, he was trailing many percentage points. Guess what? Today, the latest poll shows that he's closed that gap between himself and Hillary to just 1 percentage points. And that is how important this election has become. The stakes are absolutely so high. Just this Friday, both Hillary and Donald Trump were in the same state, great state of Iowa, campaigning, hold different rallies here. Why? Because you win this state and a couple of other battleground states, all of them in fact, and you are almost certain to get the White House. And that is why I'm here. So why are some states in the USA more important than others in determining who wins the elections? Well, I have the man to do the explanations for us. I remember that since I've been here, I've been attached to a great news outlet, the Burlington Hawkeye. Craig Nices is a features editor there and joins me right now with some take on this very important state. Craig, thank you for joining us on set.
You're welcome, Evans. It's nice to be with you.
And we've been touring Burlington today, and I've been asking you that question over and over again. Why is it that all states aren't equal in what they contribute to a particular individual winning elections? Why is Iowa so important in this race?
Well, in the United States, we have an electoral college. We do not have direct election of the president of the United States. It's not, there's a popular vote, but it's what you do in each individual state that counts. And so Iowa is worth 6 electoral votes. That's because we have 2 senators and 4 members of the House of Representatives. That's how that's determined. And so you have to win electors to win the White House. And you have to have a minimum of 270 electors to be elected president. And it's important for the candidates to come through small states like Iowa and big states like California and Texas to collect as many electoral votes as they can. Now, the way this election is shaping up, Hillary Clinton has been shown to have a much more flexible path to achieve that 270. She can win the White House without winning Iowa's 6 electoral votes. Donald Trump, who has a narrower path, as has been seen based on the projections of what states, and Iowa is leaning towards Donald Trump and has been in the polls for some time. Those 6 electoral votes could be critical to him in his chance to win the White House.
And this is what really baffles me about the U.S. electoral system, is you mentioned 270 electoral votes.
Right.
What that means is possibly you can actually win the popular votes. And back home we say you can actually win elections and lose elections.
That's what happened here in 2000. Al Gore had more national popular vote than George Bush, but they were so close in the Electoral College that it came down to a partial recount in Florida, and when Florida's electoral votes were determined to go to George Bush, he won the Electoral College. He went over the 270 vote limit and was elected president, was named president of the United States. And contrary to the popular vote, not the first time that's happened in U.S. history. It happened in 1824 also. That was before there was any kind of real national popular vote. Their votes were taken and counted, but in the Electoral College, there were multiple candidates. We didn't have the same 2-party system as today, and no candidate won a majority in the Electoral College, so that election was actually settled by the House of Representatives.
So what it is this election, most people have said, is the strangest America has had in a long while. Just last Friday, and the bombshell was dropped. The FBI is opening investigations into Hillary Clinton's mail. Today, the polls are showing that, again, Trump is closing the gap. As an American, as a journalist, what's your own take on this very strange elections?
It's odd, but you know, it's so variable because you have a national picture and then you have the picture in your state. Because you know, if you're in a state that's votes Democrat or blue all the time or red all the time, if you're a Democrat or a Republican in a state that's opposite the color that you are, then your vote matters less in the national picture. You know, in this case, you've got a very close race between Democrats and Republicans nationally, as it's turning out, and then you've got a state that's leaning a little bit Trump, but there's a lot of active Democratic, you know, process in the state of Iowa. And so you've got a lot of neighbors that are talking. You've got people that are friends in every other aspect of their lives that are completely opposed to each other on this election issue for varying reasons. Supreme Court is a big one. You know, you've got you know, this whole notion of the fixing of the election. You know, some people are listening to that. Some people want change.
How do you feel about that? That to hear in an American election, a 240-year-old democracy, that is a possibility of rigging elections. How does it make you feel?
It's disconcerting, personally. It's something that there's no real evidence for historically. I mean, we have, you know, the anecdotal stories of you know, ballot stuffing in Chicago, you know, back in the gangster days in Chicago, and machine politics and things like that. We certainly don't have a history of that in Iowa, and I'm not aware. I think a lot of it comes from fear. A lot of it comes from, you know, because there have been issues with the process, like in Florida, that led to the recount, where there were issues with actually who voted for who and what does this ballot actually say. We're going to more electronic voting. So I think there's a lot of change that's causing some confusion for folks, and they just don't know what to make of it, and we're open to more conspiracy theories, I guess. With the internet and social media, we're able to find fuel for our own fixations and beliefs and biases, and those can then grow. And so I think if you believe that there's going to be trouble at the ballot, you can find validation for that.
You think there's a real possibility this year of trouble after the elections or during elections?
Oh, I hope not. I think that a lot of people talk. I think there was a lot of anger after Obama was elected in some circles. I know there were a lot of people that went out and bought a lot of ammunition for their guns because they thought Obama was going to take the guns away, and there was never any, other than talking about background checks and certain things on gun ownership, there was never any move to do that. And so that was driven by attitudes and viewpoints that we elect this guy, this is what's going to happen. And I think a lot of that's happening here. It's just a matter of who feeds into what and who believes what, and how far does one individual person or a group of people take something like that, take that line of thinking.
Craig, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And so that's a view of a local journalist on the elections that will be in a matter of 8 days. And we'll be here bringing you the very latest coverage of this from the perspective of the Ghanaian community, but also from the perspective of journalists who are going to be covering this together. You want to be on your election headquarters on Joy 99.7 FM, also on the Joy News channel, because we bring you the very latest coverage of all elections, in fact, local and international. The U.S. elections is one of them we have our eye on. My name is Evans Mensah, live from Burlington, Iowa.
And indeed, this is your election headquarters, Joy News. You're still here on News Desk, and we'll be back shortly and return with Emmanuel Aboajiriafe having the latest in the world of business and later sports.